Hello, and welcome to Haunted Abergavenny. Tonight, we take a look at a building in the heart of Abergavenny town centre, one that is quite literally full of history. Built sometime between 1730 and 1750, it has been home to a number of businesses over the centuries, including a nursery, a surgeon, a solicitor, and a dressmaker. But it's best known to the locals as the Abergavenny Chronicle. Since the Abergavenny Chronicle took over the building 24 years ago, many of its staff and even members of the public have reported strange goings-on. Paranormal investigations and deep dives into the history of the building have taken place to try and determine who these supernatural visitors could be.
I think it sort of kicked off really first of all in about 1996 when we moved in. And it started fairly low-key. We started smelling fruit, particularly oranges, on the top floor of the building, which seemed quite odd because, we'd come up and try and look for things and couldn't find anything. So we started sort of getting that. Then we started hearing footsteps. It sort of seemed to build as we settled into the building. We started hearing footsteps going across the top floor when we knew there was nobody here. Often people would be down in the lower floor offices and they'd hear people coming downstairs. I was here in a meeting one evening and heard footsteps coming along the corridor when I knew the door was all locked and the building was secured. So it sort of slowly built. The first sort of major thing we had was I was in an office quite late at night with a colleague and we had some computer problems, and I was standing in the office watching a computer tech trying to repair the problem, and I felt a hand on my back and I assumed it was Pat, my colleague. So I turned to see what she wanted and saw she was completely on the other side of the room. And we left fairly quickly that night, actually. we weren't too long. I was here one night, and this was not too long ago really. It was probably one of the most recent major things we had. I was here quite late on my own. I was just about to lock up. And I was standing in the corridor and I heard somebody run the full length of the building up on this third floor. And it was only as it sort of listening to it that it sort of struck me that A, there was nobody in the building, and B, you can't actually run the full length because there are 3 or 4 sets of doors. So that sort of frightened me a little bit, and I thought, right, it's time to go now. So I headed off downstairs, and it was quite late at night. It was winter, so it was dark, and as I put the light off, it went really dark and I wasn't really expecting it, and I went, ooh, and behind me I heard, ooh, and so I completely shot out the building then, straight into the local policeman actually. So I said, is there anything in there scary? And I went, yeah, something.
The spirits here aren't afraid to make themselves known, with staff members often reporting the sound of footsteps coming from the empty rooms on the top floor, knocking from behind closed doors, objects disappearing and reappearing, and strangest of all, phantom phone calls to France. In October of 2015, a retired paramedic living in France claimed to be haunted by ghostly midnight phone calls from the Chronicle's office. The calls, which spanned a period of more than 3 months, came by night at exactly 12:05 a.m. If answered, the phantom caller could be heard gently sighing on the other end of the line. The recipient was convinced the calls were being made by a ghost, and even has an inkling of who the spirit may be, a telephonist called Marjorie Jackson.
I was working in my office, which is at the front of the building, and I walked out to go to the newsroom, which is the next door office. And I was standing in the doorway of the newsroom talking to the reporters, and when I went back into my room, my desk with a load of computer equipment on it had moved about 18 inches from the wall into the middle of the room. And there was no way that anyone could have got in there to do it. Absolutely no way that anyone could have got in there without me seeing them or without us hearing it. And we tried all sorts to replicate it. We sort of bounced it down on the floor and waited till lorries drove past to see if anything happened. The desk was absolutely secure. A little while ago, we tried to raise some money for charity, and we realised that sort of maybe opening the building up to invite people to come in and spend the night and do some investigations would be quite a good thing. So over the years we've had a series of groups who've come in and done overnight vigils, and members of staff have always come along to them. And quite often they start up in this room because they quite like Some of the mediums say that it creates a bit of a portal, having all these books here, because people are sort of, the spirits are drawn to the history that's in the pages. So we started off one evening up in this room, and everyone was sort of sitting around in quite a big circle. And the person who was leading the group sort of said, "Do you recognise anybody who's in the room with you? If you do, then do something to sort of show that you know them," which worried me a bit because I was the only one who they would know. And I was sitting down there, and we used to keep the books like this on top of the shelves, and one of them just shot out, and it came straight out. I didn't see it, but sort of 15 other people did. It shot straight out and then just dropped onto my head. So as you can understand, I was nearly out through the door. It took a little bit of convincing to come back in. But when we did come back in, it was we looked at the book, and it was from 1940 or 41. And one of the mediums who was here sort of said, "Does that date mean anything to you?" So I said, "Well, no, nothing at all." And it was only several years later when we found out that possibly one of the ghosts here was a woman called Madame Ardan, who was a dressmaker, who had a business and operated her business and lived here. And through a sort of long process, we discovered that we thought might be one of the ghosts. And somebody sent me her death certificate, and the death certificate said January 1941. And I came up, opened the book that had fallen on my head, and her obituary was on the front page of the paper for that week. And I thought if we'd only sort of looked and joined the dots at that point, we might have realised that it was actually Madame Ardan who was trying to talk to us all that time. Very few weeks would go past where nothing at all happened, but you got so used to it that I think people just largely ignored it.